Channel 103, the broadcast that wasn't scheduled. In 1999, viewers in a few Midwest towns caught a TV channel that didn't exist. It aired a nightly show called The Family Horror, sitcom-style program with actors who never blinked, laughed out of sync, and ended every episode with the line, "We're already inside." The channel vanished within a week, but some say their TVs still turn to Channel 103 on their own. I moved into the house on a Tuesday. It was one of those quiet Midwestern neighborhoods with hedges trimmed so precisely they looked artificial and mailboxes painted to match the shutters. The house was older than it looked, built in the late 60s, tucked behind a row of towering oaks like it was trying to hide from the street. It smelled faintly of dust and lemon oil when I opened the front door, like someone had made a half-hearted attempt to clean it before vanishing. I didn't mind. It was cheap and I needed cheap. I had just left Chicago. My life there, well, let's just say I was ready to go. The city's noise had crept into my bones, and the silence out here felt like a relief. Or at least it did at first. The living room had a huge brick fireplace and shag carpet that someone had tried to rip up but gave up halfway through. There was a dent in the drywall near the staircase, like someone had thrown something hard against it. I didn't ask the landlord about it. I didn't ask much of anything. I unpacked slowly, living out of boxes for the first few weeks. Most nights I'd microwave something easy, sit on the floor with my food, and scroll through static-filled local TV stations I didn't recognize. I didn't have cable, just a digital antenna I clipped to the window like an afterthought. There were about 15 channels, or 16 maybe. I didn't really count. That was the first time I noticed that Channel 103. It didn't always show up. Sometimes it was there, sometimes it wasn't. A blank flickering tile at the edge of the guide. No channel name, just numbers. I thought it was a glitch. Then one night it just turned on by itself. It was around 11:45 p.m. I'd fallen asleep with the remote in my hand, face down on the couch. When I opened my eyes, the TV was glowing pale and steady, casting that soft blue light across the room. My first thought was that I must have rolled over onto the remote. But the volume was low, inaudibly low, and I wasn't even on a menu. I was on a show. It looked like an old sitcom. 4 people sat around a table in a living room, set straight out of the late 80s wood paneled walls, beige carpeting, canned laughter. A father, a mother, a teenage daughter, and a little boy in suspenders. The actors smiled too wide, like they were trying to prove something. Their mouths moved out of sync with the audio, and none of them blinked. None of them ever blinked. I stared half asleep, waiting for a punchline. The laughter came anyway. Not from me, from somewhere off screen. It sounded warped, too slow. Then the camera cut to a close-up of the dad, his face uncomfortably still. His lips twitched. And he said, "We're already inside." The laughter roared, and then it ended. The screen went black like someone had yanked the cord. I didn't sleep well that night, but I brushed it off. Maybe it was some experimental college film or a low-budget public access show airing late. Weird, sure, but I'd seen weirder. The next day, Channel 103 was gone. I scanned through the antennas channels again just to check, but there was nothing between 102 and 104. No gap, no glitch. It was like it had never been there. I started to think I'd imagined the whole thing. 3 nights later, it came back. Same time, same glow. The family hour. This time, they were in a kitchen. The mom chopped vegetables on a counter that looked too tall, while the daughter stirred a pot of something brown and lumpy. The boy, he just stood there, staring at the camera. He didn't move. I watched for a while, waiting to see if they would say anything. They didn't. Not at first. The camera lingered too long on their faces. The colors were wrong, like the reds were too red, the shadows too deep. The mom finally spoke. "We made you dinner." And the camera turned. They were looking at me. I mean, they couldn't be. It was a broadcast, a recording. But somehow they were. "We made you dinner," she said, again smiling too hard. The little boy began to hum. And then, like before the dad appeared, he walked into frame from the wrong direction, like the wall had just let him through. We're already inside. End of episode. I told myself I was dreaming, that I'd dozed off and hallucinated. Maybe it was sleep paralysis. I'd had that before, back when I was living alone in a cramped studio and working the night shift. Shadows crawling up the walls, the weight on my chest, the voice that whispered my name, even though I couldn't move. I know what dreams feel like. This wasn't that. Still, I tried not to think about it. I went back to work. I talked to the neighbors. I mowed the lawn. I avoided the TV for a while. But every night when the house got quiet, I'd hear it. Not the show, just the click. Like the TV turning on by itself. Just once, then silence. I finally asked someone. An older guy named Marvin, who lived 2 houses down. He was one of those original residents, the kind who mows his lawn diagonally and knows every crack in the sidewalk by heart. I asked him carefully if he'd ever picked up strange channels on his TV. He stopped what he was doing, just stopped, like he'd forgotten how to move. "What number?" he asked. "Bahan 3, I said. He didn't blink. "You don't want that one." I waited for him to explain. He didn't. "They've been gone a long time," he said, looking past me. "You let them in when you watch." I asked who they were, but Marvin just turned around and went back into his house without another word. After talking to Marvin, I didn't turn the TV on for 4 nights. I left it unplugged just to be sure. But even unplugged, I could still feel it, this heavy presence in the living room. like the TV wasn't an appliance anymore, like it was waiting. It's a strange feeling, dreading something so ordinary. You don't expect your television to become a source of anxiety, but by the fifth night, curiosity it just won. I plugged it back in. I didn't try to find channel 103. I went through normal one's news, game shows, reruns, cooking competitions, but the screen felt empty, like I was watching through a pane of thick glass. At 11:43 p.m., the screen flickered. I didn't touch the remote. The picture didn't just change. It shifted like something crawling underneath the pixels. A glitch, a buzz, a second of static, and then the family hour was back. No intro, no theme song, just a cold cut to black and white footage of the house. Their house, the same set as before, but darker now. The lighting was rung too low, like a candle-lit stage. The dad sat in a rocking chair in the middle of the room, rocking, staring, rocking. The mom stood beside him holding a teacup that didn't seem to contain anything. It was shaking in her hand, though her face stayed calm. The boy and girl weren't there. I leaned forward. That's when the mom looked straight at the camera and said, "You moved the chair." The dad nodded just once. "You shouldn't have moved the chair." She didn't sound angry, just disappointed. I felt cold wash over me because I had. Earlier that day, while vacuuming, I'd shifted the old rocking chair by the fireplace to clean beneath it. I'd lived in the house for over a month, and I'd never thought twice about the chair it came, with the place tucked in a corner. I didn't even know why I kept it. "You shouldn't have moved the chair," the mom said again. This time her voice was quieter, slower. The dad finally stopped rocking. Then the screen cut to static. I sat there in the flickering glow, heart pounding. Somewhere upstairs, a floorboard creaked. The next day, I didn't go to work. I took the chair out to the curb, left it there by the trash. But when I came home from a walk, it was back on the porch. I called the landlord, asked if maybe someone else had access to the house. "Nope," he said. "You've got the only key." Then he paused. "You watching the late channels?" he asked casually, like someone might ask if you were getting into woodworking. I hesitated. "Why?" "Don't," he said, and he hung up. That night, I checked the TV again. 103 was gone. The other stations played as usual, though I noticed something off with the commercials, small things. A toothpaste ad where all the actors had the same face. A dog food spot that repeated the word chew 27 times. I counted. At 11:44 p.m., the screen went black and a word appeared in red font. "Remember." Then the show resumed. The family hour. Everyone was back. All four of them seated around the table again, dressed like they were going to church in the 1970s. Their mouths moved, but there was no sound. The laughter track returned, but it was distorted, more like screams run through a fan. I muted the TV, and still I could hear it. Not the show, the humming. That same strange hum the little boy had done before. Only this time, it was in the walls. I tore the living room apart. that night. Moved furniture, checked behind the TV inside the other. After talking to Marvin, I didn't turn the TV on for 4 nights. I left it unplugged just to be sure. But even unplugged, I could still feel it, this weird weight in the living room. Like a stare. I caught myself glancing at the screen every time I passed it, half expecting to see a reflection that didn't match mine. Or worse, something behind me. I told myself I was just rattled. New house, strange place, weird locals. That's all it was. My imagination filling in the blanks. Then on the 5th night, I woke up to the sound of static. Loud, sharp, familiar. I sat up in bed and listened. The room was quiet. No hum of electronics, no glow under the door. But the sound, it was still there. Like it was coming from somewhere inside my head. I went downstairs, heart pounding, convinced the TV had turned itself on again. But when I stepped into the living room, the screen was dark, still unplugged, cold to the touch. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. Things got worse after that. Little things at first. Objects not where I left them. The spoon I'd set in the sink showing up back in the drawer. The front door unlocked even though I double-checked it every night. My phone would buzz with phantom notifications. I'd look and there'd be nothing there. Or worse, the time would be wrong. 3 a.m. Again and again. Even when I knew I'd just looked 2 minutes ago. Once I found the living room clock on the floor, just face down. No broken glass, no fallen nail. It had just been moved, carefully. Then came the humming. I'd hear it while brushing my teeth. Low, tuneless, like a child trying to remember a song they'd only heard once. It seemed to come from inside the walls. I would freeze toothpaste, still foaming in my mouth, trying to locate the direction. It was never the same, always just far enough away to make me doubt whether I heard it at all. One night I snapped. I plugged the TV back in. I told myself it was just interference, a busted antenna, maybe a local pirate signal. Some kid playing games with old tech. That made sense, didn't it? I sat on the floor, remote in hand, and flipped through the channels. There it was, channel 103. No name, no show, just a still frame. The living room from the sitcom. Empty. I stared at it. Nothing moved until it did. The camera slowly panned left, like someone had picked it up and started walking. I saw the couch, the end table, the lamp with the cracked base. All props, probably. Then it turned again, and I saw something that made my stomach drop. A mirror, hanging crookedly on the wall. And in the mirror, my living room. Not the set, mine. The shot flickered, then cut to black. I sat there frozen. The air felt too still, like the room was holding its breath. My phone buzzed once. I looked down. One notification. New device detected, family room display. I turned the phone off and threw it across the room. I tried to record it. I thought maybe I could prove it to someone, post it. Online show, a neighbor, send it to a friend. But every time I pointed a camera at the screen, the image changed. Once it showed my old apartment in Chicago. Once it showed my mother's hospital room, the one she died in. Once it showed me sitting in front of the TV, but smiling. Too wide, too long. I didn't press record. I started having dreams. In them, I was part of the show. I'd sit at the kitchen table while the dad poured coffee that smelled like paint thinner, and the mom stirred an empty bowl. The daughter would giggle at nothing. The boy never spoke. No one ever said my name, but they always ended the same way. The dad would look straight at me and say it again. "We're already inside?" And then I'd wake up, heart pounding, sometimes with the taste of static on my tongue, like I'd licked the inside of a battery. I tried talking to people, just casually at first. "You ever heard of a channel called 103? I asked a cashier at the grocery store. She blinked. "Like a radio station?" "No, TV. Real late night stuff." She frowned. "Don't think we get that many channels around here." My granddad used to mess with an old UHF box though before it burned. "Burned?" "Yeah. Middle of the night. Said the screen caught fire. Weirdest thing. He said he saw something inside it before it went black." I didn't ask what. The final straw came a few days later. I was trying to sleep, headphones in, music loud. I hadn't watched the TV in almost a week, but at 3:03 a.m. I woke up. Not because of sound, because of the smell. It smelled like copper, like blood, and something else, something sharp and synthetic like melted plastic. I went downstairs, not knowing why, not even fully awake. The TV was on, but this time it wasn't the family hour. It was a new set, a bedroom, dimly lit, mine. I looked at the screen. There was someone standing at the foot of my bed, just standing, still. Then the camera cut closer, and I saw that the figure wasn't looking at the bed. It was looking at the camera, as if it knew I was watching. And then it smiled, and I swear to you it was my face. Not exactly, but close enough. Like someone had worn it too many times and it had started to stretch in the wrong places. I yanked the power cord out of the wall and ran outside barefoot. I stood in the driveway until the sun came up. When I came back in, the screen was still glowing, even unplugged, just white, silent. And in the top corner, new text had appeared. It simply said, "Tomorrow's episode. Welcome home." And something they never explained fully, a section of cable burned from the inside out as if by sustained internal heat. At the bottom of the article, one last quote from a neighbor. He used to say, "You can fit anything between the channels if you know where to look." Gave me the chills. I started marking the rules on a notepad, trying to make sense of them. Don't change the channel. Don't leave the room while it plays. Don't mute, speak, or cover your ears. Don't leave the house after it ends. But there was no mention of what happens if you do. I couldn't remember when I broke the rule. Maybe it was the night I unplugged the TV. Maybe the night I ran outside barefoot. Maybe just asking questions was enough. The next night, the TV turned on again. No cursor this time. Just a familiar scene, my bedroom. It was empty at first. Then the camera began to pan slowly, almost lovingly, to the closet door. It was open. Inside movement. Something shifted. A pale leg. A stretch of dark hair. Fingers pressing against the inside like the door was made of cloth. Then, as if reacting to me, watching the figure, turned slowly and smiled. And once again, it wore my face. But this time, it was closer. I tried to destroy the TV. I wrapped it in a blanket and smashed it with a crowbar. Took it out back and buried it under 6 feet of dirt. Then, just to be sure, I poured gasoline over the whole thing and lit it on fire. It hissed, cracked, and went silent. For 2 days, everything was normal. I even slept through the night. Then, on the third morning, I walked downstairs and found the screen sitting on the couch. No frame, no wires, just the glass. And on it, in fog, condensation, 6 words: "That wasn't yours to bring." I moved out that afternoon. Didn't pack much. Just left. I rented a motel 2 counties over, paid in cash, and threw away my phone. No GPS, no internet, no digital screens. The room had one TV, a tiny old one bolted to the dresser. I tried to ignore it, but that night at exactly 3:03 a.m., it turned itself on. I screamed, but it wasn't the family hour. It was a new show. No actors, no sets, just a hallway, a long one. It looked like the motel. Then I saw the door numbers: 117, 118, 119. It was moving down the hall toward my room. I reached for the plug, but there wasn't one. The cord had been cut. The image glitched for a moment, and then the hallway stopped in front of a door marked 120, my room. And slowly, the knob began to turn. I bolted out into the cold night barefoot again. No car, no wallet. I didn't care. I just ran. When I finally looked back, there was no figure, no camera crew, just a flickering light behind the drawn curtains and the faintest sound of canned laughter bleeding through the glass. That was 3 days ago. I haven't slept. Every time I close my eyes, I dream of it. A screen in a room. A smile that doesn't quite match. Laughter that's always a beat too late. Every time I pass a store window, I glance at the TVs. And sometimes, just sometimes, I swear I see a face in the reflection behind me. And now this morning, a note slipped under the door of the new place I'm hiding in. No return address. Just a folded piece of paper with 5 words written in shaky handwriting. We're already inside the walls. I didn't remember falling asleep, but when I woke up, the curtains were open. I live on the 2nd floor. Now cheap rental in a mostly abandoned industrial town. It was supposed to be temporary, but the view from the window this morning, it wasn't the alley anymore. It was the hallway from the motel, the one from the screen, empty, silent, stretching off in both directions like a loop that had no end. I stared at it for what felt like hours, waiting for the frame to glitch, waiting for it to end. It didn't. Only when I blinked did the window shift back just bricks and dumpsters again. But I wasn't sure which version had glitched. The motel door had been locked from the inside when I left. I went back. I had to know if Id imagined it, but the room already rented. No record of me ever staying there. When I asked the woman at the front desk if there'd been anything strange with the room, she said, "We don't have a room." I pointed down the hallway. She looked me in the eye, dead serious. That wing was shut down in 2003. Burned wiring, code violations. Nobody's been back there in years. But I know what I saw. I walked down the hallway anyway, past 116, past 117. At the end of the corridor, where room 120 should have been, there was no door, just a smooth plastered wall. Except when I leaned in and pressed my ear against it, there was laughter. I don't know why I turned the TV on again. Maybe I thought I could control it this time. Understand it. Rewrite the rules. I hooked up an old camcorder to the AV ports, pointed it at the screen, let it run. When the static started, I didn't look away. I let it play. This time, the show was different. The family hour was back, but it was playing backward. Every line reversed. Every smile held too long. The living room was wrong to subtle things. The photo frames had no faces. The doors led nowhere. One of the characters bled from their ears in every shot, but no one seemed to notice. And at the end, as always, they turned to the camera, smiled, tilted their heads, and said in perfect sync, "We're already inside." Only this time, the screen didn't go black. The family sat still. Then, one by one, they turned their heads not toward the camera, but toward me. I lunged for the plug, yanked it out of the wall, but the image stayed on, and something stepped out of the TV, not with flash or sound or violence, just emerged, like it had always belonged. It looked like me, almost, except the eyes were wrong. Too wide, too bright, and it didn't blink. It walked to the wall, turned to face me, and smiled. Then it lifted its hand and tapped the drywall. Once, twice, 3 times. I didn't know what that meant until the lights began to flicker and I heard it again. From the other rooms, the same knock. 1, 2, 3. Then a pause. Then tap, tap, tap. From the closet, the bathroom, behind the fridge, inside the walls. I ran out into the rain, out into the streets where the streetlights buzzed like flies. I didn't care where I went. I just kept going. I found myself back where it started. The old house, my first rental. It looked smaller now, quiet, forgotten. I climbed the porch stairs, pressed my hand to the door frame. The paint was peeling, the lock still broken. I stepped inside. The power was off, but the room was full of that same low glow, like a screen just out of frame. In the living room, the TV I had smashed and buried and burned sat quietly on the stand. A new episode was playing, and I saw myself present day standing in that same room, watching. The camera slowly panned behind me, and I saw it on the wall, carved in long frantic scratches. "You were never alone." I backed away, but the TV kept rolling. New scene. A bedroom. My bed. From above, I looked up at the ceiling, And there, above my bed, in jagged marks, scratched into the plaster, do not sleep when I'm awake. I haven't slept in 6 days. Every window reflects a different room. Sometimes I see my face in them, sometimes not. The laughter comes and goes. The show plays even when the TV is off. The static is in my ears now like tinnitus that speaks. There are more rules now. On the bathroom mirror in Steam. Don't record it. Don't tell anyone. Don't look away when it's smiling. Don't answer the knock after midnight. But the final rule is the one I didn't understand until tonight. Carved beneath the floorboards, I ripped up in desperation. Do not listen to the story. And if you've made it this far, I think it might be too late for you too. Because now, you're thinking about Channel 103. You're wondering if your TV has ever turned on by itself. You're asking yourself if you've ever heard a laugh that came a second too late. And if tonight when the static begins, you'll remember what I forgot. We're already inside.